Funeral services are being finalized for the Reverend Jesse Jackson, who died Tuesday morning at the age of 84. I'm being joined now by his longtime friend, Columbia attorney and civil rights leader, Jim Felder. First, condolences to you and the family on the passing of Jesse Jackson.
Thank you very much, Jim. Very much.
We're going to talk about your connection to the famed civil rights leader. We first learned that the Reverend was sick in November. We knew then that the end was near, but he somehow gathered the strength to get through Thanksgiving and the holidays, and that had to be a blessing for his family.
It certainly was. And I did speak to him after he came out of the hospital and he went to an assisted living facility. Could hardly hear what he was saying, so I said, Jesse, can you speak a little? And he said, homeboy, I'm doing the best I can. And we chatted and we laughed. How are you doing? I said, I'm doing good. How are your children? I said, they're all fine. He said, well, come see me. That was early November.
Right.
And I did not get up there again. Prior to that, I would go up to Chicago twice, at least every other month, just to spend some time with him.
But you did talk to him last Thursday, I understand.
Last Thursday was our last conversation. And one of the staff people were holding the phone to his ear, and he said, well, I'm holding on, homeboy, but I don't know, this may be it. I said, oh, don't talk like that. Just you're going to be around for a while. I said, I'm older than you. You got to catch my age. And we laughed.
Let's talk about your connection with Jesse Jackson. This goes back to when you guys were like 12 and 13 years old, right?
That's absolutely right. His mother was a beautician, and so was my mother. And they would take us, his mother would take us to the state conventions here in Columbia, the beauticians state convention. That's when we first met. Then later on in high school, I was quarterback at Lincoln High School in Sumter, and he was quarterback at Sterling High School in Greenville. Then after college, I'm 2 years ahead of him, so I'm at Clark College in Atlanta, quarterbacking. The coach offered him a scholarship, so he comes to Atlanta, and he said, Coach, will that be your first string quarterback? Coach said, no, I see that fella walking across the campus, that's James Felder. He'll be my first string, but you'll play behind him. We didn't see him anymore. He went to the University of Illinois, stayed up there a year. They wouldn't let him play first string either. They weren't ready for a black quarterback at that point. So he came to A&T State University in Greensboro, and that's where he did play quarterback for 4 years.
Any idea when you guys were teenagers that what the future would hold for the both of you, that you would both become civil rights leaders?
Well, you might say our first activism started with the NAACP Youth Council. I was in the Youth Council, me and Jim Felder in Sumter, and he was at the Youth Council in Greenville. He and 6 others staged a sit-in at the public library in Greenville. That was the beginning for him. Jim Felder and I went on he went to South Carolina State, I went to Clark, Atlanta. He sat in down there, I sat in Atlanta, and then somehow the 3 of us end up together in Greensboro, in Raleigh, North Carolina, when SNCC was founded. But that, what we tell folk, was our beginning of activism, the NAACP Youth Council, where you had to run for office and collect votes and all of that.
If you had to describe your friend Jesse Jackson to someone who didn't know who he was, what would you say?
I would say he was a great motivator. He would not let you say no. He always had a plan for what he was going to do. I spent 2 years with Jesse in Chicago. This was after the Carter election. That was the other time we got back together. I had worked for Carter in 1975. I worked Mississippi for him. In 1980, when he was up for re-election, Jesse got into the mix. So he came to Columbia. He said, homeboy, we got to go and help Carter out. I said, Jesse, I got things here to do. I'm still practicing law and all that. He said, oh, you can take a break. I left Columbia October 1st, 1980, spent the next 30 days on the road with Jesse, campaigning for Carter. The Democratic Party gave us a Learjet and a pilot, and we hit 12 metropolitan areas during that period of time, trying to encourage voters to turn out and what have you.
Campaigning for Carter in 1980, an election he lost to Ronald Reagan, but in 1984 and then again in 1988, Jesse Jackson had aspirations to become president too.
Absolutely, and that came about after the run for Carter, after crisscrossing the country and campaigning. It got into his blood. This was 1980. So in 1984, he called me and said, homeboy, I'm going to make the jump. I'm going to jump into this race. And that was the beginning of it. But it all stemmed from that 1980 Carter re-election campaign.
Let's talk about funeral services. What do we know right now?
Right now, it may be this weekend. The plans have been drawn up some time, but just a question of the timing of his death and then. and it looks like it may be this weekend, but everything will be in Chicago at the Push headquarters on the south side of Chicago. I'll be going up. The question is, who's going to do the eulogy? Is it going to be Al Sharpton, or is it going to be Otis Moss? Who's Otis Moss? Otis Moss, and a longtime friend of his, great preacher. And Jesse said to me years ago, he said, when I die, I want Otis Moss to preach my sermon, do my eulogy. And every black preacher in South Carolina knows who Otis Moss is. So we'll know by tomorrow whether it's going to be Al or Otis.
All right. Jim Felder, again,
Yes,
thank you so very much, friend, for coming in and sharing your thoughts on the Reverend Jesse Jackson.
Thanks for having me.
And we have much more of the passing of the Reverend Jesse Jackson, the Greenville native, on our website. That's WLTX.com.